Hey there friends, it's Missy again. Thanks so much for stopping in today. I have a new layout to share for Pinkfresh Studio, and today's layout is for the March monthly challenge, and you can see the color scheme there. The theme is flowers, so I'm going to start with a floral cut file. This one is called Folk Florals, and you can find it in the Pinkfresh Studio store. I'll make sure I link everything down below. Now I went ahead and cut it twice on white cardstock. And then after I cut it, I decided to cut the flowers apart because I had an idea that I wanted to scatter a lot of flowers on the background. And so I thought, well, let me just cut these little flowers apart and see what I can come up with. So that's what I'm going to do. Part of the big flower was cut off, so I just traced and cut and pasted it so they were whole again. You can't even really tell, but anyway, so I've got a lot of flowers here, and I'm going to back these flowers with some pattern paper, and the collection that I'm going to use is called Keeping It Real, and that's one of the two of the newest collections. Again, I'll link those down below if you want to get your hands on this one. Beautiful colors, beautiful flowers. It's just a great collection for everyday things, which is my favorite thing to scrap. So I'm going to start with this gorgeous striped paper that I've already cut into for a previous layout. And what I thought I would do is use this to back some of these smaller flowers because they fit perfectly inside these stripes. And so I'm going to do all kinds of colors. I'm going to do yellow, corals, pinks, light blue, a little bit of that darker purple color. And I'm just going to glue it straight down to the paper. The smaller flowers I'm going to use this pattern paper for to get a little bit of that darker purple color and some of the light blue. And what I wanted to do, and I guess in a sense this is technically backing a cut file with paper, which is a very common and popular way to use cut files, but I don't want to glue the entire thing down. So I'm just adding glue to the center, so the petals will kind of bend up or curve, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here in a second when I cut this one out here. So I just used glue on the center part, and then when I cut around the petals, the outer edges are not glued down, so I'm able to curl them up. And I like flowers to look dimensional and look a little bit, you know, 3D, so that's what I'm talking about. I can curl it up and they can kind of jump off the page and just look more like real flowers. So I got all the flowers done. You can see the bigger ones there, and I've got a variety of color here, which is my favorite. I love using all the colors. And I am going to jazz up the flowers by adding a little bit of watercolor to some of them. And so I'm using some white gesso here and just using my finger to kind of smudge around in the center of the flower, a little bit on the inner pieces of the petals, because I want to add some color there. For this big flower here, I use that striped paper, so there's multiple colors in this big flower, but the rest of the flowers are just one solid part of a paper. So for instance, this flower here is basically all light blue and white. So I wanted to jazz it up a little bit, make it look a little varied on the colors, and so I'm going to come in with the watercolor and just add a little bit to the middle and then a little bit to the inner parts of the petals. And I'm just dabbing a little bit of color with a little bit of water and then using my finger to kind of smudge it. And this is also going to bring a little bit of this aqua blue color to the layout. And that's one of my favorite colors in the watercolor. That's the sky blue. Side note, the liquid watercolors from Pinkfresh Studio are on clearance. And so I'm not sure how many are left, but they are 50% off while they last. So I'm going to link those down below. If you want to get your hands on some of these for a great price, you can do that before they're all gone. I love these watercolors. The colors are so vibrant, and I have used them on many, many layouts. But yeah, this color here is my favorite, sky blue, and that's the color that I'm going to add to the blue flowers. I'm going to do a little bit on the pink flowers and the yellow flowers, and then I'm not going to do anything to the little tiny flowers because they're just so small. I didn't feel like I needed to do anything to those. So for the pink and coral, I'm going to mix a little bit of the pink and the red together and do the same thing that I did with the blue flower. I think I mix a little bit of purple in there too. That's one of the fun things I love about watercolor and mixed media, is just getting a little bit of this color, a little bit of that color, and mixing it together. And I love how it looks on these flowers. And so this is why I use the gesso in the beginning, because it allows the color to kind of smudge and blend, because otherwise it would just immediately soak through the paper and I wouldn't be able to use my finger to kind of smudge it around. But I'm doing the same thing on these medium-sized flowers here, just a little bit in the middle, kind of spreading out into the petals. And then I'm going to use a little bit of the yellow and orange mixed together for the yellow flowers to add a little bit of more of a golden tone to the yellow. So now what I'm going to do is create some even smaller flowers, and I'm going to use this new stamp set. It's called Reset, and there are a lot of fun words on this stamp set, but I'm going to use just these flowers, and there's also a die set that comes with it, so that's what I'm showing you there. And I'm going to use the dies first on just a sheet of white paper here, run it through my manual die cutting machine, and that's going to give you the base to stamp on. And I don't do this a whole lot, so I'm not an expert die cutter or an expert stamper, and this is just how I felt was the best way to do this. I could be doing this totally backwards or totally wrong, but this is how I did it. I went ahead and cut the shapes first, and then I'm going to stamp on them. I'm going to test it out here on a little scrap piece of paper, but I've got all the shapes, and then I'm going to use the Pinkfresh Studio mini ink cubes to stamp. So I've got my ink on there, and I have to get really close to make sure it's lined up. So that's a great shot of my messy bun. But yeah, there you go. So you've got a die cut ready to go. The colors that I'm using match this collection. I'm using Candy Violet there first, which is that really pretty purple color. I'm using a light blue color called Summer Shower. And then that coral color that I have not used yet, but I'm about to, is called Coral Reef. And this was actually really easy to do. You just cut the shapes out and then find the coordinating stamp, and then you got a bunch of really pretty little dainty flowers. And you could do this with any color at all. I thought about doing it with just black ink, but then I thought, no, I want to keep it light and colorful, so I'm going to go with matching colors. Then I decided to paint the flowers in. So I'm going to come back in with the matching watercolors and just do like a little messy paint job here. I don't want these to look perfect. I want it to look kind of messy, but these turned out really cute. I'm going to use, like I said, the same colors that I used on top of the die cut flowers. But this didn't take very long at all to do, and I want to do this more. I really like the stamping with the matching dies. It's fun to do, and I know a lot of people use these on cards, but I don't really ever make cards, so I like to make these work on my layouts, and that is what I have so far. They're messy, they're cute, they're tiny, and yeah, you could, like I said, make these with any color that you want. So I'm going to try to play around with the design here. I haven't even decided what this background is going to look like, and here we are almost 9 minutes into this video, and we're still making the flowers. That's how it goes. But anyway, I'm going to put all these flowers together, incorporate the little tiny flowers as well, and still do more mixed media on my background. I'm going to use thick white smooth cardstock here. I'm using the Art Basics Finnabair clear gesso, and I'm using a 2-inch silicone brush to apply it. And I'm going to just go ahead and cover the whole thing because I'm not sure what's going to happen. So I've got the background prepped. This is going to allow me to add lots of watercolor, whatever I want to add to the background, and let me move the color around and get it just like I want it. And my first thought was I wanted to do sort of a top to bottom cascade of all these flowers. So I thought, let me just try, see what I come up with, put all the big flowers down first, and then go to the next size and the next size, and then finish off with these little tiny ones that I cut and stamped. And I do have my photos chosen over to the side. I think I'm about to show you those finally. Sometimes it takes me forever to pick my photos, but I wanted to get the design ready. I did choose some black and white selfies. Surprise, surprise. I know those are my favorite kind of photos to scrap. And I went with black and white just because I had so much color going on and I wasn't sure what kind of photo I wanted to use yet. So I just went with black and white, played around with it off camera, came up with a whole different design. So I think I'm going to do something like this, where I have a big cluster of flowers over to the right and then a small cluster to the left. And I like that better because of the way she is looking in the photo. She's kind of looking toward the left, and so I wanted the photos to be on the right. And this background is going to be kind of different from the way I normally make a background. I don't have anything glued down yet, but I want the watercolor on the background to be intentional and certain colors in certain places. I don't want it to be random. So I'm leaving everything where it is, and then I'm going to start to paint around it. If you look at the colors, I've got a yellow flower kind of right in the center, and then the little yellow one over to the left. So I wanted to bring more yellow over to the bottom right area. So I'm going to add yellow watercolor there and see how it looks. So I felt like if I removed everything and then just went crazy on a random background, I wouldn't know what color was going to go where. So I know now where I want specific colors to go. So that's why I'm just kind of very carefully adding the color. And I hope that makes sense, because usually I will remove everything and just go to town on a messy background, but I wanted specific color in specific places in a specific way. Hopefully you'll see how my train of thought here as I'm going. I wanted a trail of blue going from the left cluster to the big cluster, so that's what I'm doing here. And I wasn't afraid that I was going to mess up the flowers because they're so dimensional, and the color is not really soaking into the flowers. It wasn't really an issue here. So I'm just very carefully going around them. I decided to go with blue here, and I think this is sapphire, and it's just very, very watered down. I wanted it to be that light blue color. I'm going to add in a little bit of the sky blue color, which is that aqua. And again, I know I talk about gesso a lot, but do you see how I'm able to really water this down and move the color around and just have it look soft around the edges? It's not immediately soaking through to the background, and the gesso is kind of a barrier in between all this color and the paper. So that's why I use gesso so much. It lets you have time to move color around, and it looks different when you use gesso. You have the ability to dab part of it up. You have the ability to add water to it to soften the edges. The colors blend together a lot nicer. Yeah, it's a whole different ball game when you use the gesso there. And it just depends on the look that you're going for. You know, gesso is definitely not required by any means. I just prefer to use it for the effects that I like to achieve with the mixed media. So I'm going with a little bit of the purple pinkish color up at the top here. And I do have to work with it because some of the watercolors do change color. They react with gesso. I don't know what it is, but the purple and the pink watercolors definitely change color a little bit when they hit gesso. The purple kind of dries this really light, bright pink. So I had to add several layers to that and work with it to get it just the right color. But it's all good because I've got lots of pinks. I've got different shades of that going on in the layout. So it all worked out. But this was kind of fun and interesting to do because I was trying to be very careful and work around all of the flowers there. I'm just adding some foam here behind all the flowers to pop them up and give them some lift off of the page. Love doing that. It's always a great effect. Took a break and decided that I wanted to use a stencil to add some interest to the background. And this is a new stencil called Diamond Plaid. And it's actually 2 stencils to create a layered look, like with different colors. But I wasn't going to focus on that for this particular layout, so I'm going to use some tape and actually tape these 2 stencils together because I want the layered effect of both stencils together, but I'm just going to use one color on each color area, meaning kind of like a tone on tone. So I'm going to use blue ink on top of this blue watercolor section, and I'm going to use the same little mini ink cubes that I used earlier. This is the Summer Shower color, and I have a little ink blending tool here, and I just dab it on top of the ink pad and then kind of use a little circular motion to add the color over the stencil. And I love doing this on backgrounds. It just adds interest, it adds some detail, and because I used the gesso, I'm able to do this. Basically kind of add a little bit of water to the shapes, and it kind of bleeds out and makes it look even messier and more interesting because, you know, I love things to look messy. I rarely like things to look super neat and organized. So yeah, I love that technique. I've done that technique a lot with stamps too, where you can use these inks and stamp and then use your water and your brush to kind of fade the edges out a little bit and make it look like it was left in the rain. That's the best way I can describe this technique. It just looks like it was left out in the rain, and you can still get the effect of the stencil. It just looks very abstract, and you can just kind of make out the hint of these interesting diamond shapes. So I'm gonna wipe off my stencil there and do the same thing. I'm gonna do the yellow section, and then I'm going to do, yeah, this is how I clean my stencil. I just spray it with water and then use a napkin to wipe it off. I will take it to my sink once I'm officially done, but I was on a roll and I didn't feel like going into the kitchen to wash, I can't even speak proper today, to wash it off. So I just kind of wiped it off and went for it. The yellow color that I'm going to use here is called Marigold. Same technique. Right over the stencil, right on top of the watercolor. Now you definitely want to make sure the watercolor is dry before you do this. I've learned that the hard way because I'm impatient, but I did make sure that it was dry before I did this. So the yellow section's definitely not as big as the blue section, so I didn't add as much, but I'm going to do the same thing over here on the pink purple section, and I'm going to go back to that candy violet color. And yeah, this is just another way to use stencils on a background. And you know, you could still do this without gesso if you didn't want to add the water to it to kind of bleed out some of the color. But yeah, I love that. I like that it looks kind of chalky, and some of it is light, some of it is dark. But yeah, I like that. I think it looks interesting, gives it a little bit more something, that little something extra on the background. All right, so I've got all of my flowers back in order. I'm going to work on layering the photos. I'm going to add a little bit of white tissue paper here, and I like to have a little bit of a layer because sometimes I add a lot of pattern paper or things behind the photos. In this instance, I'm not going to do that because I've got all these flowers and all this background done. And since the photos are black and white, they kind of stand out already on their own, and they have the white border around them. And so the tissue paper is just another little layer of something behind the photos, but it's very subtle and it's not going to take away from anything. I just felt like I didn't really need to add anything. These flowers are so dimensional. They stand out, the photos stand out, and that's all they really need. I'm going to go ahead and glue the flowers down. I'm using Scotch tacky glue in my fine liner bottle there. And I am going to wind up having to flatten this out a little bit because everything is dimensional. Like I said, those flowers are kind of popping up. I've got adhesive foam behind the photos. So I'm going to glue everything down here in just a second once I get everything else all organized. And then I'm definitely going to let this set for a while with something heavy on top of it to make sure that everything is glued. And then I can come back and peel the flowers up so the edges are, or the petals are popping off the page. I'm going to go tone on tone with my thread here. I'm going to use yellow in the yellow section. And again, I just like thread because it adds texture, it adds color. Two of my favorite things when it comes to scrapbooking, and I just like the look of it. I'm going to add pink up at the pink top. You guys, I'm doing this voiceover in the morning, and I rarely do that. I can tell a difference because my brain isn't processing the English language very well today, so I apologize for that. The pink in the pink section, and then the blue in the blue section. So it's very subtle. From here you can't even really see it, but I promise it's there, and you can see it more in the still shots. So I'm going to make sure everything has plenty of glue since there's so much dimension going on here. And like I said, I'm going to flatten this out. I do want the photos to be a little bit skewed. I like when they're a little bit on the crooked side. And I like that it looks like she's, especially the bottom photo, kind of like she's looking up and across the layout. And now I just have to figure out where to put all of the smaller flowers, all the really tiny die cut ones, and then the ones that I stamped and painted. And I don't wind up using all of those, but I do use quite a few. And I'm trying to mix and match the colors around so all the colors aren't grouped together. But this is what I've got so far. I really like the dimension. I'm going to make sure all those little flower petals are kind of curving up. I just love that. I love that. Now it's going to be adding in the title and some other stickers and things from the collection. And I felt like I wanted to use one of the scripty, puffy words or phrases for the title. And so I'm going to use Best Part. And it's not that light blue color, it's kind of an aqua color. And then I'm going to mix and match some things to finish the title. But I like that it was 2 words. I like that font, and I like that it fits perfectly right there in between the 2 clusters. I've got some stickers and some die cuts that I'm going to add in. I love this little piece here that says a little pick-me-up. And I like the pop of pink that it gives right there in that blue middle area. I'm going to use a couple of puffy stickers. I tried that circle sticker, but I think it stands out too much. I don't really have any other circle elements going on. I stuck it there, and then I'm going to take it off. But I'm going to use a couple of little floral pieces on either side of the photos there. Got a couple of little word stickers, phrase stickers that I'm trying to find the perfect place for. And one thing that I love, well, a lot of things I love about this collection, but one thing I love about this collection is that it's just general, you know, it's not really themed. The name of it is Keeping It Real, and I love that because it's just about everyday life. There's positive things, there are negative things, and by negative things, I just mean like when you're having those days and you're just like, no, that ain't happening, not doing it. Like those type of feelings. You're going to get a lot of that in this collection, which are awesome. I'm going to add the word the right in between the B and the T of the title, and I'm going to use 3 light blue of the little multi-colored puffy alphas. I love that they're tiny and colorful. Awesome. So yeah, the best part, that's going to be the title, because, you know, this is the best part of sitting on the couch when you're with Paige, because she's going to attack you with kisses and cuddles. And you just have to sit there and take it, which I always do because I love it. I'm going to use the enamel dots for the centers of the flowers, and I'm going to do tone on tone again. And then, yay, my favorite, the essentials, jewels and crystals. I love these things. I use them all the time. The pink and the blue are the crystals, and the yellow ones are the jewels. A little bit of a difference in the two. The crystals are more clear, whereas the jewels have more of like an iridescent shimmer to them. Both are very beautiful. I used a little bit of both of them here. You can see up close how the crystals are kind of clear, and then that's the difference. You see the difference in the jewels? They have more of a sparkle, whereas the crystals are kind of more like clear little pebbles. But yeah, I love all of them. I think they're gorgeous. So I just scatter those around tone on tone, And then I'm going to add the journaling, and I'm going to use my black Sharpie for that because I do have black and white photos, and so I felt like the black pen was okay for that. And then I'm going to come back in with the watercolors again just to add some splatters in the same colors that I used earlier, because I just was in the mood to do some splattering and I hadn't done that yet. And then we're done. That's the final layout. I really love how this turned out. It was fun to use that cut file and then stamp all those little flowers and cut those out on the die cutter. And yeah, it was just a fun layout to make. I love this collection. It's really, really beautiful and fun and funny with some of the sayings. So I'm going to get a lot of use out of it, that's for sure. But I took a ton of close-ups here. You can see all the dimension, all the textures, the messy background. And I hope it inspires you in some way. I hope it gives you some ideas to try. I know mixed media can be intimidating, but it just really takes patience more than anything. I mean, you know, this layout, I worked on it over the course of a few days because there was a lot going on, even though it really doesn't look that way. You know, the flowers took a little bit of time to make, the background took a little bit of time. And, but yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed the process, and I hope you'll join the challenge. I'll leave the challenge where you can enter, link down below. You can, if you enter, you have the chance to win a $50 gift card to the Pinkfresh Studio store, which is amazing. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.